Makeup is hard. A lot of people don't like to believe that because it's predominantly performed by women every day, but that doesn't make it any less difficult. Makeup is a skill. It requires a lot of knowledge and effort, and it is hard. So I'm going to explain to you how to get this very simple makeup look step by step, as simply as I can possibly make it, assuming you know very little about makeup already. I really hope this helps, and let me know if you have any questions. The first step, and probably the only non-negotiable step in makeup, is skin prep. If you don't know where to start with this, I'd suggest using a simple moisturizer and a sunscreen. That's the minimum you should use. You just want to make sure that your skin is well moisturized and you're protecting your skin with sunscreen. I'm going to use the Skin Fix Barrier Plus Triple Lipid Peptide Cream. It has a nice pump so you can get the right amount. And I'm going to smooth this all over my face to make sure that it is hydrated. This is going to help your makeup go on smoother. If you're not hydrating your skin, your makeup is going to cling to all the dryness and it's going to look a little bit patchy. It also might be a little bit more difficult to apply. So I do this all over my face and I bring it down my neck. Skin prep is pretty individualized, so what works for me might not work for you. And as you practice more and try out different products, you'll figure out what you like. So with each layer of skin prep, you want to make sure that it fully dries on your skin before adding another layer. The reason why we do that is because if you don't let it dry and you put something on top of it and you start rubbing in your face, you might experience pilling. Pilling is when the product bunches up on your skin, it kind of rolls up. So we want to try to avoid that as best as we can because it's kind of difficult to deal with. So I'm going to tap my skin to make sure that everything is fully dry, and then I can add a sunscreen. This is the Coco Kind Daily SPF Facial Sunscreen Lotion. Now for sunscreen, you do kind of want a lot. I think the recommended amount is 2 finger lengths, like that. So it's probably a lot more than you would typically think you need, but you really want to protect your skin. So I'm trying to get the product evenly dispersed over my face and neck, and then I can work on blending it out. And it looks really white right now, but as you blend these out, it should be better. I'm gonna keep blending this in. It kind of takes a long time. And again, I'm gonna try to let this dry down a little bit before I add any other makeup. All right, moving on to base makeup, which is anything you put on your face except your eyes and lips. A lot of people's first step is primer, but I actually think this is pretty optional, and I'm gonna skip this. I think if you're just getting started, primer is something that you don't need to worry about. Your skin prep should do a lot of the work for you. After you've had some experience with the rest of your makeup, you might find that you are missing something and you need a primer. But if you're just getting started, you really don't know what kind of primer you will need, so I would skip it. So I'm skipping over primer and going straight into a tinted moisturizer. Again, for a beginner, I think a tinted moisturizer is a lot easier to work with than a foundation. You have a lot more leeway with shade matching and blending, so it's a lot harder to mess up. And what I recommend everyone to use is either a makeup palette or something similar that you can put makeup on and it won't stain, so like a mirror or glass, or you can use the back of your hand. And you can take a little bit of your product. This is the Tower 28 Sunny Days Tinted Sunscreen in the shade Fairfax, and I'm gonna drop it right onto the palette. You can always add more to the palette, so start with less than you think you need. And here's the scary part, we're gonna use a brush. I know a lot of people think using your fingers or a sponge is easier, but I actually think it's a little bit harder. Using a brush is a skill, but once you get the hang of it, it is so much easier. And I promise you can do it. And this technique of using a brush to apply your skin tint is the exact same technique I use for fuller coverage foundation. So once you learn this skill, you can apply it to different things. My preference for foundation brushes is something really dense and with a slight angle like this one. This is from Hourglass. A denser foundation brush with either a flat or rounded top like this or an angled top. It's going to be a lot easier than something that's less dense. Higher density means more bristles are touching a certain area of your face at once, meaning it's going to be a lot easier to blend. So imagine I dipped this clump of Q-tips into paint and I used it to paint a picture. This would almost look like a full circle because the Q-tips are close together. But if I had the same amount of Q-tips and I spread them out like this and I did the same thing, it would look like streaks or like lots of random dots, right? So it's the same idea for brushes. And that's why I think you should use a dense foundation brush. And I'm dipping the brush directly in, and you can see that it made kind of a little circle in there. If I do this, I'm just gonna have a bunch of circles on my face. So I'm gonna try to get the product fully dispersed onto the brush by repeatedly tapping like this. You can see that some of it's coming off, and I'm tapping all over the place. Now you can see that the foundation is starting to get on all the other bristles. This is a little bit of extra work that you can put in beforehand, and it'll save you a lot of time. I don't recommend putting foundation directly on your face and then trying to blend it out. That's just really difficult. To be honest, it doesn't look like there's a lot of product on here, but it's gonna work, I swear. So now that the brush is loaded, loaded, I can start applying it to my face. What you don't want to do is swipe it down your face. You're gonna get brush marks. Instead, start tapping. I like to start tapping where I have the most redness or where I want the most coverage. I use tiny little taps in a little circle, and then I move it out. I'm just getting a base layer on my face, and I can always pick up more product and build it up if I decide that I need more. So I'm gonna add a little bit more, and you can see that I am building up the coverage here. Obviously, this is a skin tint, so it's very low coverage anyway, but I mean, you can see the difference, right? This is not a difficult technique once you practice. And I'm just gonna repeat the steps through all the different areas of my face and make sure that everything is blended out. And you can see that there are no streaks at all. Another tip is that I like to hold the foundation brush at the end like this. This is an art trick. This allows you to exert less pressure on the brush, which helps you to blend out better. If you press too hard, you're also gonna get brush marks. So I'm pressing so lightly, like very gently tapping. And another thing with foundation and skin tints is that you probably need less coverage than you think. You really don't have to make it look completely perfect for your makeup to look good. You are a person, you don't have to be flawless. There's redness peeking through down here, and I have some redness and some acne marks right here, and I'm just gonna leave them. They're not gonna be noticeable when you're done. So work in steps and trust the process. You don't have to be perfect. And I like to add a little bit of the skin tint down my neck just to make sure that the color blends in, so it doesn't look like I'm wearing a mask. And here is what my foundation is looking like. Now I can move on to concealer, and I'm gonna use the NYX Bear With Me Serum Concealer. And I'm choosing this because it has a pump and I can't apply it directly to my face. So again, this is gonna help me practice my brush skills, but just with a smaller brush. This is pretty much exactly the same foundation brush, also from Hourglass, but it's a concealer brush and it's a lot smaller. But it's also dense and it has a slight angle. You can use any other kind of concealer brush too, but this is what I like. And again, I put some on my palette, and I'm gonna pick up a teeny tiny bit and incorporate it into the bristles of my brush. The same exact way we did the foundation. You see how this is a foundational skill that you're gonna be able to use in a lot of different ways, and it's gonna make your life a lot easier going forward. All right, so I've coated my brush, and now I can apply it to my face. A lot of people like to put a ton of concealer under their eyes. Sometimes that's fine and that's fun, but I think you should start with a little bit less and then work your way up. So I'm gonna just use this amount, and I'm gonna start in the inner corner of my eyes and press. And I'm gonna press again, and I'm gonna work my way very lightly out to the outer corner of my eye to give like a lifting effect. Now I'm not picking up any additional product. I'm gonna blend this out a little bit by repeatedly tapping. I like to bring my concealer down a little bit along my nose to kind of brighten that area up, but you don't have to. And I like to soften this line a little also. You can also put concealer on your eye if you have discoloration. I don't really mind mine. And I'm keeping the concealer in this plane at a very light layer. This is gonna help prevent creasing. Creasing is gonna happen, but it won't be as obvious if you have less product on your eye. And now I can pick up tiny bit more concealer and do the other eye. Using a smaller concealer brush than this will give you more precision. You'll figure out what kind of brushes you prefer as you get to use them and get to know your tools. If you want to add extra coverage to other places, you can use concealer there. I like to add some to highlight my chin a little bit, around my nose, just because I have some extra redness there, and I always do a little bit on my forehead right here. Next, I'm going to move on to bronzer, and I'm going to use a very sheer cream bronzer. This one is from Makeup by Mario. It is the Soft Sculpt Transforming Skin Enhancer in the shade Light, and I'm using a very old Real Techniques brush. I'm going to pick up a little bit with my brush like this, and this is the same kind of brush skill. I'm just tapping this into my skin. A good starting point with bronzer is to apply it to the side of your forehead right here. This is because when the sun hits your face and naturally tans you, these are the areas that you will tan. And you can add more bronzer and build up that color if you like, but because this is a very sheer formula, it's kind of difficult to mess up, which is why I think this is really good to start with when you're just learning makeup. I like to use really light layers and being really soft with the brush. Again, holding it at the end helps a lot. That helps it diffuse together so you don't have any kind of harsh lines. The next spot is right here on the tops of your cheekbones. Just a reminder that bronzer is not contour. You can certainly use it that way, but it's not going to give the sculpting effect that you're probably after. Bronzers are warm toned to emulate how the sun affects your skin. So the end goal of applying bronzer is to make it look like you've been out in the sun. And I can bring it down to where the hollows of my cheeks are. And you can also see that this is helping to reduce the redness that was left over from the skin tint, which is exactly why you shouldn't worry if your foundation doesn't look perfect, because you have a lot more makeup to apply. I like to add some to the bridge of my nose too, because that's often where I freckle. I think it gives a nice sun-kissed look. And I do a little bit on my chin. A fun way to do an eye look is to add a little bit of that bronzer onto your eyes like this. You can be really messy with it and it'll still look good, just like that. I just throw it on. It just kind of helps make things a little bit more cohesive. Now for blush, I'm also going to use a cream blush. This is the Basma Beauty in the shade Mauve, and I'm using a pretty dense brush because this is a cream. So again, I'm picking up the product straight from the packaging. And if you're unsure of the pigment of a blush, you haven't tried it before, I would test it on the back of your hand so that you don't accidentally put too much on your face. You can always start with less and build up, but it's hard to take away. And that was pretty soft, so I'm gonna add a little bit more. And a good starting place for blush placement is to put it on the high points of your cheek right here. This is going to give a lifted effect. So I'm starting right here, kind of in the center of my eye, and I'm tapping up toward my temple a little bit. I'm gonna go over the same spot a lot. I'm gonna gradually move it out. So I'm increasing the radius. This is gonna help diffuse the blush, but keep the focal point right here. You can certainly use your fingers to apply cream blush, but I do encourage you to practice your brush skills because that helps with everything. And I like to add a little bit to my nose. You can do the tip of your nose or the bridge. All right, for a beginner look, I'm gonna skip highlighter because I think we have enough glow going on, and we're gonna work on setting our face next. I'm using a translucent powder. This is a pressed powder from Pat McGrath. This is the shade Light. And you can see that kind of the product bunched up a little bit under my eye. So I'm gonna re-blend that out with my brush a little bit. And immediately after, I'm taking a very small powder brush. This one is from Kosas. I'm gonna pick up a little bit of powder, just a light amount. And I'm gonna press that in to set it. We're not baking here, and I am just setting where I put the concealer. Sometimes you can go a little bit overboard with powder and it makes you look a little bit dry. So this is where I would start, just where I put the concealer for now. And you can add a little bit more if you'd like, just to make sure everything is fully set. And now you can see it looks a lot less greasy. And I'm gonna do the same exact thing to the other eye. I prefer a smaller brush because it gives me more precision. If you use a big powder brush, you can get powder everywhere in a short amount of time, but because we're not setting everything, a smaller brush is easier to use. And I'm also putting the powder where I put concealer on other places of my face. So I like to do around my nose because that's where I put concealer. You can do here on your smile lines. I do my chin and my forehead. Also, because I have combination skin, these are the places where I tend to get the oiliest. So putting a little bit of powder there will help that. But I want to keep my glow intact, so I'm not gonna put powder here. You can if you want to. And that is it for the base. All right, moving on to the eyes. I like to start with my eyebrows. I'm going to brush them through with this fully on a brow pencil. So I'm brushing them up a little bit just so I could see what I'm working with. And I prefer to use a really tiny brow pencil. This one is from Kosas in the shade Soft Brown. This is gonna allow you to get hair-like strokes so it looks really natural. And instead of filling in my whole eyebrow, I'm gonna use the pencil to draw little hairs to fill in only where the sparse areas are. I'm gonna find where the gaps in my eyebrows are, and I'm drawing a line following where the eyebrow hairs are naturally going. And I'm using kind of a lighter shade of eyebrow pencil just because my eyebrows are fuller. But if your eyebrows are sparser, you might want to choose an eyebrow pencil that is closer to the color of your eyebrow hairs. In the front, I'd go very, very lightly. I'm barely touching. And as you practice this, you will get a lot faster with it. And now I'm gonna take the spoolie again and lightly comb through to make sure that there's nothing harsh. And now that's filled in. Not a huge difference, but it is a difference. I'm sure there are lots of people who have a lot more in-depth brow tutorials if you have sparser eyebrows, but this is what I'm working with. But I'm doing the same exact thing to the other eyebrow. Now I'm gonna set and shape the brows into place with a clear brow gel. This one is also from Kosas. And it is pretty light hold and it's a workable finish, so it's a lot easier to use and practice with than a strong hold because if you mess up you can just move it again. And what I do for this is I thoroughly coat all the brow hairs by brushing them up. This is almost out, so I'm really trying to get the product. I'm coating them and brushing them straight up, pretty much. You're gonna look goofy at first, but that's okay. And then I start shaping them into place. So I press a little bit harder at first, and then once I get towards the ends, I move them. This takes a lot of practice, and it also really depends on your eyebrow shape and the look that you're going for. But I just very, very, very lightly just maneuver the eyebrow hairs into the place that I want them. I just like to tidy things up. It's not about perfection. Sometimes I go back and play with it. I like to move the hairs around so it fills in any gaps. Setting your brows into place just helps them stay throughout the day. And that's it. We actually already started on our eyeshadow with the bronzer. So now I'm going to add a sparkly liquid eyeshadow. This one is from Armani. And to keep things as easy and simple as possible, I'm gonna apply this directly to my eye, all over the place, and I'm gonna tap it out. This is a sheer eyeshadow, and it just adds a little bit of sparkle and shine. And you don't have to be too careful with it because it's very sheer. You can put it anywhere and blend it out so easily, and it just adds a little bit of pizzazz. So easy. It's a really, really nice eye look. You can also do this with a powder eyeshadow like the Urban Decay Moondust eyeshadows. A lot of people don't like to put shimmer all over the place, but I think it looks pretty. All right, now for eyeliner, I'm actually just gonna use a brown powder eyeshadow. It's not even that dark of a brown. I'm using this one from a Flower Nose palette. And I'm using the tiniest little detailer brush to apply this. Using eyeshadow as eyeliner is the easiest way to line your eyes. I'm gonna take the product that I have. I'm starting in the outer corner, and I'm slowly fluffing it towards the center of my eye along my lash line. And because it's eyeshadow, you don't have to be that precise. It is so much easier than liquid eyeliner or pencil eyeliner. I like to extend the eyeliner out at the corner to make a tiny little wing. And I take a small but fluffier brush and I diffuse this out. This also makes it foolproof. So if you made any mistakes when applying this, it doesn't matter. You can just blend it out. To blend it, I'm just making small little circles along where I put it. And you can see that it just slightly framed my eyes a little bit. Doing the same thing to the other eye. And you can go back and forth if you feel like you need to blend anything out more to make them even. Now to finish off the eye look, I'm going to curl my lashes. This is a lash curler from Shiseido, but lash curlers really depend on your eye shape, and that requires a lot of trial and error. With my eye open, I put the lash curler onto my eye, and I start as close to the base of my lashes as possible, and I gently pinch my fingers together, open and close like this, like pulsing. Then, once you get enough of that, you can slowly adjust the lash curler to move up until you get to the tip of your lashes. So you're pressing the lash curler, moving up, pressing, moving up, until your lashes are curled enough for you. Doing the same exact thing on the other eye, but a lot faster because I have practice with this. Now I'm taking my favorite mascara. This is the Judy Doll Curling Iron Mascara. And yes, it is a metal wand. It is really weird looking, but it works. You use it the same way as you would a normal mascara. I start at the base of my lashes like this, and I wiggle it up to the ends. And I move and do the same thing. You can also brush through like this. And I just do a really light coat of mascara. And I add whatever's left on my wand to my bottom lashes in the same way. This is optional. Some people don't like mascara on their bottom lashes, and that's fine. You can add multiple coats if you like a fuller lash look, but I'm okay with this. So I'm just gonna do one coat on each eye. I often accidentally put mascara on my eyelids, so I just use a little Q-tip to wipe it away. And because we use light coverage, it's not really that big of a deal. Now I'm gonna complete the makeup look with some lip gloss or a lip balm. This is the easiest thing you can do. But it adds a little bit of color to my lips, and I don't have to worry about being overly precise with it. All right, and here is the final look. It is certainly not perfect, but it's a really good place to start. Let me know if you have any questions or if you'd like me to go in depth on anything else.